We're going to be talking about the meaning and the existential problem of atheism. Meaning and purpose. Meaning means the significance of something, and purpose is the reason for or end goal of something. Nihilism and existentialism. Nihilism is the philosophy of despair. Life is without objective, it is meaning and purpose. There are no innate duties, for nothing of any true value. The entire meaning is that life is hopelessly worthless. And existentialism is the philosophy which focuses on the now, or our present existence, and its basic entirety is to live in the moment. Different forms of existentialism exist, and nihilism existentialism recognizes that we all have is just the now. Life is going nowhere. One could create meaning in the life, but in the end, it is ultimately absurd and meaningless. The Myths of Sisyphus by Albert Camus compares the absurdity of man's life with the situation of Sisyphus, a figure of Greek mythology who is condemned to forever repeat the same meaningless task of pushing a boulder up a mountain, only to see it roll down again. The essay concludes, the struggle itself is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. It's hard to imagine myself being happy as Sisyphus. Nihilism and theism. A transcendental argument can be made to show that there is no middle ground between nihilism and theism, with respect to the objective meaning and purpose, value, and duty. What makes this argument so powerful is that most of the people are not willing to acknowledge the grim consequences of atheism and embrace purposeless, meaningless, and worthless existence. Taking the root off tactic is highlighting the significance of God's question. Nihilism versus theism with no middle ground in respects to meaning, universals and particulars. The example of particulars: 2, percent, plus, addition, equal, rounding, fractions, negative, average, variable, sum, product, 6, greater than, less than, etc. These all individually make no sense unless they are unified by a transcendent universal. In this case, the universal is mathematics that makes all of these have meaning. The tiered levels of particulars, such as mathematics, business, politics, science, language, arts, and the physical science, philosophy, history, art, etc. What is the universal that gives these particulars meaning? Is it education? Higher tier of particular things: education, family, health, work, leisure, community, etc. And what is the universal that gives those particular things meaning? Your life? But your life is just one of the many particular things which by itself random and insignificant. It has no meaning apart from a higher tier of particular things. The problem of the one and many. Particular things have meaning only when they are unified by a transcendent universal. Unless there exists an ultimate overarching absolute, a supreme universal that unifies all things, life is absurd and everything is meaningless. The Greek philosopher called this ultimate absolute the Logos, a title used by John to describe Jesus Christ in John 1 and 14 is the absolute Logos. Nihilism versus theism with no middle ground to the purpose of purpose. No purpose at the beginning without God. Life was brought into being by an undirected natural forces. Big Bang, evolution. The product of chance, undirected. Antithetical, contradictory to purpose. There is no purpose at the end without God. We live in a dying universe. The second law of thermodynamics, entropy, the amount of usable energy is running down and will eventually run out. And the fate of life is destined to end, and it's scientifically proven so. All of the accomplishments of man will eventually be forgotten. No purpose in the middle without God. Seems obvious that no purpose at the beginning, no purpose at the end equals no purpose in the middle. The objection, can't you create your own purpose? Yes, but only subjective purpose. It's true for the subject, but not an objective purpose that makes sense for everyone. It's true of the object is the purpose. Creating meaning is actually no more than deceiving yourself. Objection, there are things in my life that are meaningful to me, and that matters. Why are the things meaningful to you meaningful at all? Where do you get your sense of self-worth from? Well, can't we at least agree that there is meaning in survival and being happy? Survival is hopeless, however, if due to the second law of thermodynamics, and the universe doesn't care if you're happy or miserable. Again, you can't justify what matters to you, or even the entire human race matters at all. All attempts to find meaning and purpose without God are arbitrary. The forgotten dream. Assuming atheism, when the universe dies, not if, but when, because the universe will die, according to the second law of thermodynamics, the earth and all life that has ever existed will be like a forgotten dream. And ask yourself, how meaningful is any forgotten dream that you have had? Ponder that for a moment. Purposeless and meaningless. No purpose at the beginning, no purpose at the end, no purpose in the middle, therefore no purpose at all. Life without God is purposeless, without reason or intent, and therefore meaningless, without significance. If God, then meaning and purpose, theism. If no God, then meaningless and purposelessness, which is nihilism. The book of Ecclesiastes is all about this. It's written like a piece of existential literature. In Ecclesiastes 1:13 through 14 it says, "And I set my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all that is done under heaven. This burdensome task God has given to the sons of man by which they may be exercised. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and indeed, all is vanity and grasping for the wind." This is the primary message of the book of Ecclesiastes. Pascal's wager. This wager states that in the absence of evidence both for or against God, one should choose to assume that God exists, because this allows us to live happily and consistently. With theism, we have nothing to lose and eternity to gain. How does this prove God? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't need to. The presumptual argument. If meaning and purpose, then God. Cost/benefit analysis of theism, Pascal's wager. Rabbi on Pascal had a very good commentary on this wager that Pascal stated. Here's the link to that. However, some positive arguments can be made for God's existence. The argument for meaning. Two different constructions of the argument are from our ability to discern meaninglessness. A man feels wet when he falls into water, because a man is not a water animal. A fish would not feel wet. If the whole universe has no meaning, we should have never found out that it has no meaning. Just as, if there were no light in the universe, and therefore no creatures with eyes, we should never know that it was dark. Dark would be a word without meaning. It's from Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. We discern meaninglessness because meaning exists. If meaning exists, then God exists. And the second premise, for practical purposes, one should adopt theism. It's practical because, one, we should always adopt a worldview in which there is at least potential for meaning and worth. Two, theism provides no possibility for meaning. Three, atheism provides no possibility for meaning. Theism provides a possibility for meaning, and therefore one should adopt a theistic worldview.